Good evening. Hi, everyone. I just posted this on Twitter and I hope it's I hope I'm able to get some of you in because I also man, we need a calendar around here, turfs, of events because I keep missing things and that's not cool. I always want to take part in all these cool things that my sisters are doing and I'm excited for a new wave of turfs that are gonna be coming at us that, people have made me aware of. I'm very excited about that. So, today, I'm not gonna be able to do a Turf Sunday service because, I'm gonna be traveling this coming week, and I'm not gonna be able to prepare something, but I really wanted to do this tonight. Um I wanted to do a tribute to Stephen, and I hope I get that more of you because I know that Sinead O'Connor's passing has been discussed a lot on Twitter, and I I I really wanna be able to have an opportunity to do it here because I certainly have a lot to say. Um, so Yeah, we need to set up a calendar because I see that I'm missing a Twitter space that I wanted to be at. But for now, I'm doing this. A little water. Mm. And but I'm also doing this in honor of our sister in rage, Sinead O'Connor. I wanted to share some thoughts also on the culture of silence in the Catholic religion. Sinead O'Connor is a someone that I have been following closely because of her very vocal stance against the Catholic Church. We share that in common. Uh, Being that we were in the religion and, more specifically in the culture that exists in the homes, Catholic homes. So, I also wanna talk about Dolores O'Riordan, who is the lead singer was the lead singer of the Cranberries, also a woman raised Catholic, Irish Catholic. So, um yeah, I've been a really big fan of Dolores O'Riordan, for so long, for so many reasons, and I wanna talk about that too, and sort of what I think is, her and Sinead O'Connor, their significance, to radical feminism, because I think that we can definitely make some connections, in the messages that these women were promoting, especially, uh, hello, Kelly. How's it going? We're talking about Sinead O'Connor's passing. Um, I'm sure you know by now. And it was a very sad passing. The details of her life, um, were, she saw some struggles, some difficulties. Definitely the Cranberries. I'm gonna be talking about Dolores O'Riordan, and I do know, a little bit of, insight and knowledge, on these women because, I'm also gonna be talking about how very similar, Catholicism is Mexican Catholicism is to the culture of Roman Irish, Catholicism that these women, both of these great women in rock, endured. So I'm so glad that you're here, Kelly. and everyone else who's tuning in. Like I said, I know I'm missing some events going on right now on Twitter, but, we gotta get a calendar. Oh, so, yeah, Sinead O'Connor, I did a couple of slides, some visuals for us, and I hope my video comes in better because holy moly, my last stream was pretty terrible. So, let me know when that happens again. Oh my goodness. There is, I believe, a penance, a price for speaking as a devout Catholic or as someone who was brought up in the culture. There's a lot of Catholic guilt and shame, and we're gonna talk about that too. So she died at the age of 56. That's quite a young age, I think, for anybody to die. She had very unfortunate circumstances in the last few years of her life. She lost a son, a young son. She had 4 children total, and she lost a son to, suicide. It's very sad, and we don't know the details of her passing yet, but like I said, I wanted to sit down with the turban, with the Rad and Rage Femmes and have a discussion, a recognition of this iconic Irish, very brave woman, this sister, this warrior, I think, who in her life, committed impactful and indeed very feminist acts of bravery, and she did it at great risk, and, one could say her, career didn't flourish as they usually do. She didn't blow up because she was very controversial. Um, as far as her music, I think, most people will know her for that one song, right? Who was, a song written by Prince, but it worked for her because had a very innocent, very delicate voice that I think, really transcended, right? I did enjoy that song very much, and I think there must have been, like, another song or 2 that I resonated with too, but she had that something, right? When she came out, I think, me as a young lesbian, short hair right away. Short hair makes lesbians very excited. We perk up, we wanna investigate. Um, she was very she had a very iconic look also because, her beauty, undeniable, and she also it just seemed like she looked like controversy. She looked punk rock. She was she was rage. She was a misfit. It's very obvious. What impacted me the most growing up was her very controversial, appearance on SNL, and I do wanna show that clip a little bit, later because it impacted me so much, and I'll explain why, but that's, like, what really sort of set her apart from everyone because she got banned from SNL. She was disinvited. She couldn't go back to SNL because of the stunt. So, it obviously wasn't she hadn't planned that with the producers. So that was badass. That's that's fucking punk rock right there. That's riot girl shit. And this very small, very innocent looking Irish woman was just, causing all kinds of waves. I I really understood what she was doing. She was whistleblowing. She was using her, very, very young platform at the time. She hadn't been hot for years. She had just come out. and she was using that platform to she was even, like, risking endorsements and everything that could have potentially come her way. She was risking all of that to be able to say something that needed to be said and impacted her, and I'm gonna be talking about Catholic CSA. We're gonna be going into that, but, it is a really fucking dark topic, so trigger warning. Um, so yeah, she did end up pissing a lot of men off, especially a lot of, big men in the Roman Catholic Church, but someone had to. This is rage feminism, being willing to risk everything to expose the bad men, to expose the abusers, so that everybody knows. Okay, this is abuse thrives in silence. There's very few women that are in tune with this reality and are willing to do it. So that was Sinead O'Connor for me. That whole stunt, and like I said, I'm gonna show it right now because it's really awesome. We should see it, and the words I think that she used for me were particularly significant. So, let's watch it. It's beautiful as as she was. This is badass.
We find it necessary. We know we will win. We have confidence in the victory of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
How were you treated when you said fight the real enemy and you ripped up that?
So, I just wanted to show that part. I that was really badass when she came out and she did that. After this video that I just showed, there's a really great, interview that she did for this, in which she talks about the fact that, the child child, sexual abuse has been running rampant in the Catholic Church for, forever. Nobody talks about it. There's so much shame around the topic. So I looked at this particular event in, like I said, a very young stage of her career. I thought that it was just so poignant and significant. And that's what she did. So when she invoked the royal we in this video, I think that really impacted me too as a kid because I would hear women say, we." She said, "We have confidence in the victory of good over evil." And I always thought that she meant women, us, the ones that have had to see these kinds of abuses. This abuse that she was trying to bring awareness to and shed light to. And I thought that there was some kind of sisterhood behind that. So artists that did that, especially women that would rock out like Sinead O'Connor did with her voice, they've been very much a part of my rage feminist ethos. Kathleen Hanna is another one of those artists, but I'm not going to talk about her tonight. She gets a whole video too, and I'm not happy with that's for another video. But how are you guys? Who's out there? So, yeah, I always thought, I always hoped uh, that she was talking about a coalition of women, a cavalry of women that were going to come in and take care of these issues. Because the people that were perpetuating these issues, men with power, men with religious power, moral power, that's the ultimate kind of power. they were not talked about. They thrived in silence. So, um, and it's us, we're the ones that see the evil women. We know what it feels like on our bodies. So she went on it and she had this interview and she talked about how the child abuse that she had experienced, it was not clerical. So it wasn't to do with the church. Um, and she, had some issues with being recognized as a survivor because, she talked about how in when it relates to the harms that men cause for women, bring upon for women, uh, we're the ones that are really like we have a very passive role in it, and she seemed to understand that. And in this interview, she talked about how some people don't survive. Some of us are so incredibly passive. She saw herself as one of the lucky ones. And she recognized that there are some women, some girls that don't make it. So she came out in she came out in the early 90s music scene as like a very strikingly beautiful woman with this buzz cut. I think a lot of girls identified with that look because, we all wanted to do it and we know what it meant too. And she made me wanna be part of whatever team that she was on, and once I ascertained that, like, she wasn't a skinhead, because my mother thought she was, I listened to her music and I really vibed with her and her performances too. Her especially her eyes, they're really beautiful in that video, and they spoke words that, transcended the music, I think. There was, like, an innocence there, and it was surprising to later have found out that she had been going through as much as she did. She was a small woman too with a lot to say, still optimistic. There's something that hadn't been corrupted by her. I really thought that. And a lot of her music reflects that. It's like I'm really into song lyrics, as I hope everyone is, because I kind of really love like, when the music is like the perfect combination of amazing lyrics and really good music. But uh a lot of her lyrics were about heartbreak and wanting to find love uh in partnership. And there were voids that she talked about from childhood neglect and that parental disattachment that, I know all too well working in the foster system. It's to have experienced it as young as she had. And she suffered like tremendous abuse at the hands of her mother, which, as unloved daughters like myself, we recognize that this is complex trauma and one that devastates, and it's pretty impossible to heal from because I think, and it's been my opinion that really only one person can heal that trauma, and many times they won't. So, she had a very troubling relationship with her mother who seemed to always be working against her. I read a long time ago, I read her it was a biography on her. And, this I think this really sort of set her emotionally adrift, you know, maybe even physically, because she had some problems with uh alcoholism and other stuff. So, the parental disattachment, it really makes people avoidant. in a lot of ways. This is a result of that very specific, very complex trauma, the mother bond being broken. And it's very hard to work through, I think. Um, and this is like the kind of trauma that um, I've seen it play out. It's one of those traumas that potentially, that have the power to potentially wreck very, your intimate relationships, your friendships. Um, and as I said, there's really only one antidote for the trauma from a neglectful mother. And that's the same mother as a healer and a nurturer. And many daughters are rarely this lucky. So, yeah, these are just like things that came to me, as I'm like processing, the loss of this iconic woman. Especially, it's never good to it's never nice to know that like uh, especially these people in entertainment, like Anna Nicole Smith is one of those other people. Like they just really have a downward spiral in the last few years of their life. And we know that Sinead was struggling with loss. Um, so yeah, she had experienced like trauma in her home. She was a troubled kid, probably because of this parental disattachment and, other things that she says were going on in the house, which is awful. Um, and as a teenager, she shoplifted and her mama called a popo on her. The fuck? That's some shady ass mama shit right there. That's fucked up. Her mom called the police on Sinead O'Connor, and she was institutionalized in one of these Magdalene laundries. And let me tell you, I mean, there's a lot of fascinating articles about this. I'm sure some of our sisters here are familiar with these institutions. They're like slave labor camps, like very prison-like environment. And but it was like a holding house. It was a place for young girls specifically to be tucked away from society when they were bad, when they were acting up. And that a lot of times this meant, when they had reported abuse in their homes. For some reason or another, these girls were seen as like bringing shame to their families. And Sinead O'Connor ended up in one of these places. It's just really terrible. It's really awful. So, yeah. And there was even a movie, I think. I remember seeing it. It was a foreign film because I used to love foreign films. I used to watch them a lot more than I do now. But there was a foreign film that I had watched about the Magdalene sisters. I think that's what it was called. And it was about these very institutions. And this is very much tied up with the religion, the Roman Catholic religion that again like has a very austere view of women and the behavior of women. And Sinead O'Connor was trying to mitigate complex trauma in the home. It makes sense that she would have been a troubled teen acting up, but this is no solution. And this shit went on from like 1765 to 1996. I mean, it was just very freaking recent that these shits were operating in Ireland. And like I said, they were prison-like conditions for essentially unwanted, unloved girls after they've been traumatized and abused in their homes. So it's a very short trajectory, for Sinead O'Connor, I think, like with given all these experiences and all this trauma, it just seemed like, her life had just sort of been just like, trauma after trauma and, other things that she had gotten into when she did step into the entertainment industry that she saw. Um, Yeah. So, I think about that. I think about that when, you know, women, especially brilliant women, talented women with incredible potential like this. I think about these circumstances very much when we consider, someone's quality of life and the quality of lives, the quality of the lives of women. Um, but her life is one that is highlighted, I think, by bravery more than anything else, my sisters. We can really connect with this woman's rage and the actions that came with that rage, with her frustration at institutional abuse, and we can connect with the despair that comes with this kind of bravery. There's a price. There's a like I said, there's a penance for this kind this kind of feminism. Um, I think in the case of, Sinead O'Connor and, Dolores O'Riordan, who I will be talking about too, it's it was a lifelong penance. And for some, that take on so many burdens. Like this must have been a burden for both of these women to have been so vocal about abuse. They didn't stay silent. They were able, probably because of their platform, their talent, their beauty and rage, they were able to say what is true. Uh, Ripping up the Pope's picture on SNL in the early 90s and doing it live, speaking out about the persistent abuses of the Catholic Church, abuses that I had experienced and I saw others experience. That was real to me. That image and the the symbolism behind it was very real to me. And growing up in a Mexican machista culture and in the Catholic religion, a lot of these themes, of course, piqued my interest heavily. My mom would freak the fuck out, like, oh my god, it was sacrilege when she did that. It wasn't something that good little girls do, especially good girls that love Jesus. They don't do stuff like that. You'll go to hell. Devil might be right underneath your bed that night. That's the kind of shit that's the kind of bullshit that Catholics like to scare their kids with, y'all. And they do. Mm, 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 mm. Um, yeah, so like I said, she was banned from SNL. And, we can agree that after that, she didn't have a very polished career, right? She didn't blow up. She didn't get, huge. She didn't go probably as far as she was meant to go because of this persistent rage. She was being honest about the abuses of the entertainment industry too. I think that that's kind of what set her on this course of just like, you know what? Fuck it. I could see this. She must have been like, fuck it. I'm just going to say the truth all the time about everything because it's pissing everybody off. I'm scaring people. I'm intimidating people. People are afraid of what I have to say. Let's do it. Let's keep going. And I think that she really did that. Really do. Um yeah, and I want to talk about that infamous letter that she wrote to Miley Cyrus because I thought that it was definitely very radical feminist. I don't know if Sinead O'Connor considered herself a feminist or what she thought of feminists. I do wonder. I do wonder, with all this stigma against feminists, women with the interests of women in mind, so much stigma. Um, but I do wonder, what she thought of feminism. But I I wasn't aware that she wrote this letter to Miley Cyrus, and I'm now aware of it posthumously. And I want to read it because it's so rage. And what she has to say in plain speak, I think is really going to resonate with the message of a safeguarder. And I thought that she very much was in that. Um, let's get into that because it's very interesting and I want to read this. These are very powerful words, and I would like to continue to remember Sinead O'Connor with this act. Um, this was in The Guardian. I'm sure some of you guys have read it because it's making the rounds on Twitter, on Radfem Twitter, and it's it's poignant. So, uh, yeah, I guess Miley Cyrus had she had drawn some comparison between her and Sinead O'Connor when she put out that Wrecking Ball video. And I have my thoughts on that Miley Cyrus. I never liked that whole tongue wagging thing because obviously she's sexually signaling, and why would you do that in public? But these are I get it. These are clowns, these are entertainers. Um, but Miley Cyrus is also someone who has grown up on the TV. We know her parents, and we saw this child in her shows, doing these cute little Disney, Hannah Montana stuff. And we like I mean, I like Miley Cyrus. I love some of her songs, but I have to admit, Miley Cyrus is one of those entertainers that got took. Yes, so Dragon, I do have some thoughts on that and some info on that because there is a Dolores O'Riordan and Sinead O'Connor connection, and I do want to talk about their relationship a little bit because they had one. Um, but back to this controversial letter, which it was controversial because women this was like Karen level 10. This letter, this is what people would say. They would call Sinead O'Connor a Karen. I agree. Dragon, she does. They would, and they did. I believe she was vilified for this letter, Sinead O'Connor, and we're gonna talk about why. But thanks, Dragon, and you're still my moderator, girl. Thank you. So yeah, this is a really good letter. I want to read this to you guys, and it's pretty radical feminist. It's pretty rage. Dear Miley, I wasn't going to write this letter, but today I've been dodging phone calls from various newspapers who wish me to remark upon your having said in Rolling Stone your Wrecking Ball video was designed to be similar to the one for Nothing Compares, which I never saw the comparison, but so this is what I need to say. And it is said in the spirit of motherliness and with love. Really love that. I am extremely concerned for you, continues Sinead O'Connor, that those around you have led you to believe or encouraged you in your own belief that it is in any way cool to be naked and licking sledgehammers in your videos. It is, in fact, the case that you will obscure your talent by allowing yourself to be pimped, whether it's the music business or yourself doing the pimping. Nothing but harm will come in the long run from allowing yourself to be exploited. And it is absolutely not in any way an empowerment of yourself or any other young women for you to send across the message that you are to be valued, even by you, more for your sexual appeal than your obvious talent. I am happy to hear I am somewhat of a role model for you, and I hope that because of that, you will pay close attention to what I am telling you. The music business doesn't give a shit about you or any of us. They will prostitute you for all you are worth and cleverly make you think it's what you wanted. And when you end up in rehab as a result of being prostituted, they will be sunning themselves in their yachts in Antigua, which they bought by selling your body, and you will find yourself very alone. None of the men ogling you give a shit about you either. Do not be fooled. Many's a woman mistook lust for love. So true. Many's a woman mistook lust for love. If they want you sexually, that doesn't mean they give a fuck about you. All the more true when you unwittingly give the impression you don't give much of a fuck about yourself. And when you employ people who give the impression they don't give much of a fuck about you either. No one who cares about you could support your being pimped, and that includes you yourself. Yes, I am suggesting you don't care for yourself. That has to change. Based. You ought be protected as a precious young lady by anyone in your employ and anyone around you, including you. This is a dangerous world. We don't encourage our daughters to walk around naked in it because it makes them prey for animals and less than animals, a distressing majority of whom work in the music industry and its associated media. You are worth more than your body at your sexual appeal. The world of showbiz doesn't see things that way. They like things to be seen the other way, whether they are magazines who want you on their covers or whatever. Don't be under any illusions. All of them want you because they're making money off your youth and your beauty, which they could not do except for the fact your youth makes you blind to the evils of show business. If you have an innocent heart, you can recognize those who do not. I gotta pause. There's just so much wisdom. There's so much wisdom, like several lives of wisdom in this, what I think is a very beautiful letter. It's a very motherly letter. And this was written by Sinead O'Connor for those that are just tuning in. A letter that she wrote to Miley Cyrus, warning her about the bullshit in the entertainment industry. She continues, I repeat, you have enough talent that you don't need to let the music business make a prostitute of you. You shouldn't let them make a fool of you either. Don't think for a moment that any of them give a flying fuck about you. They're there for the money. We're there for the music. It has always been that way, and it will always be that way. The sooner a young lady gets to know that, the sooner she can be really in control. She's giving her like some probably very hard earned entertainment advice here. How does she get bullshit for this? How? This is how a parent, a protective mother regards a daughter. She continues, you also said in Rolling Stone that your look is based on mine. The look I chose. I chose on purpose at a time when my record company were encouraging me to do what you have done. I felt I would rather be judged on my talent and not my looks. I am happy that I made that choice, not least because I do not find myself on the proverbial rag heap now that I am almost 47 years of age. Oh, wow. She wrote this about 10 years ago. Which unfortunately many female artists who have based their image around their sexuality end up on when they reach middle age. Real empowerment of yourself as a woman would be to in future refuse to exploit your body or your sexuality in order for men to make money from you. I needn't even ask the question. I've been in the business long enough to know that men are making more money than you are from you getting naked. It's really not at all cool. And it's sending dangerous signals to other young women. Please, in future, say no when you are asked to prostitute yourself. Your body is for you and your boyfriend. It isn't for every spunk spewing dirtbag on the net or every greedy record company executive to buy his mistress's diamonds with. Sinead. As for the shedding of the Hannah Montana image, whoever is telling you getting naked is a way to do that does absolutely not respect your talent or you as a young lady. Your records are good enough for you not to need any shedding of Hannah Montana. She's way gone by now, not because you got naked, but because you make great records. Whether we like it or not, us females in the industry are role models. And as such, we have to be extremely careful what messages we send to other women. The message you keep sending is that it's somehow cool to be prostituted. It is not cool, Miley. It's dangerous. Women are to be valued for so much more than their sexuality. We aren't merely objects of desire. I would be encouraging you to send healthier messages to your peers that they and you are worth more than what is currently going on in your career. Kindly fire any motherfucker who hasn't expressed alarm because they don't care about you. Boom. That was badass. That's a protective parent. That's someone that's looking out for a vulnerable woman. And we know that Miley Cyrus has been a vulnerable woman. The word prostitute, it's not far off, y'all. It's not. The music industry especially, because, man, it's like, it's always pissed me the fuck off that, like, women, especially in the music industry, they have to work like 3 times as freaking hard. Not only do they have to have a good voice, they better be fucking perfectly attractive, and they better dance like a fucking stripper and to perfection. The day that Jay-Z is able to do all of that, okay, and rap on stage, I'll believe that we have even achieved equality. And it's not equality that we want. It's neutralization. Neither here nor there. But still, I agree, Kelly. I really do think that she was looking out for Miley. Who's looking out for Miley? It's not Miley's parents. How the hell? Yeah. Badass. Fucking punk rock. Oh my goodness. What a beast, right? Another for Sinead. She was 100% spot on. and so unabashed, right? Every single time that she spoke out for women, so unabashed in the way that she confronted this topic in the news and in the public media, the topic of abusive men. And she didn't back down despite pushback. But I think she really tried to come from a place of caring at the same time. This was wonderful. She's also spoken out against this media, against this false like media representation, and how the media, you know, it's not even talking about mental illness. It's not even addressing the mental illness that women endure in the music and entertainment industry. No one talks about that. They want everything to just be on time and look glamorous. Be perfect. Be Beyonce, which is a very toxic message, by the way, because there's no such thing as perfection. Excuse me. But she's right. You know, Sinead O'Connor this is circumspection right here. This is being able to look ahead. You know, when Wrecking Ball came out, you know, we hadn't known, I don't think, that Kesha was, you know, enduring abuse from, you know, sexual abuse too from her producer. We didn't know what Britney Spears was going through fully, and that girl ain't okay either. I'm just saying. We really need to talk about Britney. We need to learn about what's going on with Britney too. We shouldn't laugh. Shame on me. We shouldn't laugh because these women have been greatly impacted by these industries that very much, yes, slave drives them to perfection. And that's never a good message for absolutely anybody. And Sinead O'Connor was absolutely right. She said this. She was trying to show Miley Cyrus that she has responsibility here. I talk about this a lot, responsibility towards our own sex. We have a responsibility to tell our daughters this and other people's daughters. Lindsay Lohan too. Girl went through it. Okay, there's a lot of women that don't look like they're okay. It happened to Mariah. Poor Mariah. Mariah came up though. Mariah, we don't want to lose you. 100 Dragon. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just doing a little bit of Stevie Nicks last night. Do I love Fleetwood Mac? I'm just saying, like, she also brought this to light. The fact that these women have talent. Talent should be enough. It's enough for Jay-Z's mug. Jay-Z is not a handsome man. I just gotta say. Is he not? But you know, he's got talent. Men can have talents, and that's enough. It's enough for them. So as we know, you know, Sinead O'Connor herself was highly pathologized in the media because of her fight back. That's the only reason. She spoke up. She said things that were inconvenient. And so they treated her like she was a literal crazy woman. They ostracized her this way. And the things that she talked about were issues that affect women. She converted to Islam. Oh, Lord, Sinead. You know, for all the talk. However, but for all the talk, you know, that, you know, she, you know, did about religion, what happened to her? She found Islam. And, you know, she was which was truly really kind of bizarre, I think, since she was, like I said, she was trying to run away from like one abusive cult, going straight into another. I don't know, but I think that she might have shed that. I don't know if anyone knows. She might have shed that in recent years because what I saw of her online, you know, I didn't see anything that looked, uh, like she was still practicing it. And like I said, she was going through a lot in the last stages of her life, which is unfortunate. And I would venture to say that, the lives of women are made excruciatingly difficult when we have this burden to shed light on truth. It's a hurdle. And I think that it really set her back in so many ways. She struggled with, depression. She, somehow miraculously, was able to sustain, because from what I hear, she had a lot of troubles, and she lost her son, um, very tragically too. Her lyrics, they reflect a human being that was trying really hard to find love and understanding. And I think I will always remember her for that. She was a good one, right? She was a good one, Sinead. And I've been thinking a lot about her in the last couple days since her passing. And I'm not gonna lie, it's got me in my feels a lot more again, all over. It's like got me in my feels all over again. But with a familiar love and a solidarity with these Irish rage feminists. But Dolores O'Riordan is also someone that, was just such a huge inspiration to me, especially as a survivor of CSA. She also survived Catholicism. And Dolores O'Riordan was the lead singer of the Cranberries. And she passed in 2018, and she too was relatively young. She was 46 years old. And I identified very closely with Dolores via her beautiful and heartbreaking lyrics, especially like her signature keening style of singing, which is like it's like a way to sound more lamentable, I guess. It's like a lamentation in the song, very similar to like mariachi music, and we have something similar. But she came it just gave her such a unique sound. I had never heard anything like Dolores O'Riordan ever. And I identified so closely, like I said, with her through her lyrics. It was her lyrics. I mean, of course, it's like iconic sound, right? The Cranberries are like an entire sound all their own. Like I can almost hear it. Their guitar sound is just so unique to them. Um, but yeah, uh it's very haunting also, her voice. And her writing talked a lot about the isolation that CSA victims feel, especially when it's so tied to the family, to issues of the protective mother, the failings of a protective parents. She definitely talks about that. Um, and so like me, like a 14-year-old me was really resonating, the Mexican Catholic girl. And I want to talk a little bit more about my Catholic experience and why it was very similar to these women, and why I understand this culture of silence, that I do want to talk about my Catholic upbringing, because it was fucking crazy, y'all. I've always joked and I've said that, like, literally my mother was like Carrie's mom. Carrie's mother. And you know what Carrie I'm talking about. Scary, Carrie. It's a very, it's and, the fact that, like, I think Irish and Mexican people we're kinda death worshipers. Definitely Mexicans. There's a component of death worship in our culture. It made, this it Catholicism was made just a far more creepy, I think, you know. If you've ever watched Madonna's her video, one of her videos, I really felt like that resonated with me too, Madonna's Catholic experience. Cause it's crazy. It's insane. And um, like I said, I'm gonna get a little bit into it, but you know, worlds apart though, you would think, Mexicans and Irish. I definitely thought it at this age, like when I was discovering the cranberries. But then I started learning more about Catholicism as an adult and about history. And then it made fucking perfect sense. Okay. Because religion is a really strong compass of morality. And Irish and Mexican Catholicism, they're very similar in practice. And also in the fact that, you know, they're very female constricting patriarchal cultures. And I want to talk about a little bit about why. Absolutely, Dragon. Like her voice is you know, I was listening to it as I was doing some of the writing for this and just there's and just like with Sinead O'Connor, there won't be don't get me crying. There won't be any women like these Irish girls here. It's like, you know, for the female rockers, at least for the legacy of the female rocker, this is a tremendous loss, right? Because I know Dolores O'Riordan was. Yes. Yes. Uh, yeah, and there's a little bit of history too, like a little bit of Mexican and Irish history that, you know, I hadn't been aware of. And I was talking to I was talking to my grandma about this because I remember my great grandma being very excited, like a little too excited when St. Patty's came around. Like at the time, I thought that it was like really like a white, like American white celebration and holiday. I was like, why is great grandma celebrating St. Patty's so hard? But see, she came from the old country, and as it turns out, guys, like Uh, there were Irish settlers here during the US-Mexico War of 1846 through 48, you know, the one where friggin' the US took our land, us Mexicans. Um, and there were Irish settlers here in the US who were like, "You know what? Fuck this shit. We're not gonna fight with the Americans because 'cause they're Protestant mostly. They're not Catholics. We will seek safe haven in Mexico and fight along these Mexicans." And a lot of Irish settlers did. Okay. And that's why in Mexico, you know, and great grandma used to celebrate St. Patty's hardcore because in Mexico, it's more of like a military holiday. You know, Mexicans, they love their military holidays. They very much celebrate the military in Mexico. Like it's any good because it's not. I don't want to say why. I'm scared of these Mexicans. Um, yeah, it's in Mexico, it's el Batallón de los San Patricios, which is it's like St. Patrick's Battalion Day. You know, it's a day that the Mexicans commemorate the fact that American immigrated Irish settlers had abandoned their American allegiance and fought with the Mexicans in an effort to keep Aztlan. So yeah, and so I found that out, you know, as I learned about history and this connection between Irish Catholics and Mexican Catholics, and it's really just the damn religion, you know, it unites them. Uh, Dolores O'Riordan, you know, she had very humble beginnings too. That's another thing that I resonated with her on. Um, and she grew up poor. All right. Like she came from very modest means. And I do tend to believe that there's like a an even deeper devoutness among people that are more marginalized, impoverished. Um, many people can make construct theories around that, but uh they go crazy. And my family certainly did. They relied on Jesus and the saints for everything. Um, it just seemed like the more marginalized, the stricter the devotedness. And she came from a family of laborers too, very humble beginnings. Interesting. Mhm. Mhm. I'm telling you, it's a death cult. Hey, witchy. It is a death cult, and we gotta contend with that. But and, she was even my great-grandmother's name is Dolores too, because again, it literally translates to pains, sorrows, sorrowful pain, and this is a very common name, because it's the name of a saint, okay? We have a lot of Judes, Judas in the family. 'Cause, these Catholics, they be naming their kids to appease the freaking saints. And yeah, a few other women in my family were named Dolores. But it was also like the Catholic cultural traditions that I think that we had in common, because once I started learning about like the way that she saw the world through her music, I was like, oh my God. It's just such a, religion is such an influence. It's such a moral compass. Uh, yeah, so, like, things like traditions, that we had in common, like the holidays, the Irish and the Mexicans, they love those, Christian holidays too. They're very serious about the celebrations of the biblical holidays. The prayer books, the novenas, the most morose outlook on death, like I said, and dying. That shit used to scare kids, the way that Catholics talk about death. Oh my god, I'm still recovering. The Catholic guilt and shame, especially, that women endure in this religious cult. Uh, it's also a belief system that puts a lot of value in the chastity of females. The behavior is always monitored under a Catholic patriarchal lens. Uh, and the culture of marriage and child rearing are very controlled, especially because, like I said, Catholics very much value procreation. Don't mess with their stereotypical sex roles because they get very mad, these Catholics. A bitch can write a book, but Dolores and I already felt like, we were practically soul sisters. I really just idolized her because I really thought that we came from the same ugly little system of silence and obedience. Um, I want to talk about these albums because just wow. Wow, like, I mean, if there's any song that resonates with you guys, just please talk about it and share about it. I never got to pay tribute to this wonderful rocker, Dolores O'Riordan. And she has deserved it. But, everybody else is doing it, so why can't we? And no need to argue. These have been albums that, like they say, defined my youth. Oh, they were very depressing, but they were also uplifting. Like, how could that be? And, I connected so much with, friends over the Cranberries music. Um, a friend of mine who I was trying to make my baby daddy, the one that almost inseminated me. I've shared about that story. He and I met in a philosophy class, and we were both like really hardcore into the Cranberries. And we would listen and sing to this music. And I have a lot of really good memories of it. Um, they were very influential albums in my preteen experience, and like I said, it's because of the lyrics, the sorrows of a survivor of abuse, of she talks about alienation, from that abuse, and that really resonated with me. Yes. Dragon, you know. Yeah. O'Riordan she was very open about her struggles, with mental health. I know that she was a functioning bipolar woman, which, I think is very valiant, because I know that bipolar disorder cannot be a very, very pleasant, affliction. She also dealt with depression and thoughts of death, which, were, themes in her music. She was also very, later, much later, she was very outspoken about the CSA that she endured as a child. And she was very young, from 8 to 12, very young child. Um, I read that later in life, she got an apology from her abuser, who was a family friend. This was very significant for Dolores O'Riordan. But, the damage is it's really done, because it's a very difficult harm to come out from. The trust, I think, that it takes, it really just can't be replaced. Though, I can imagine that an apology from an abuser, could be significant and impactful. But it's just the kind of abuse. What was taken was already taken. It can't be given back, and it can't be replenished. In Catholicism, the father is exalted. This is a very popular theme in Catholicism. The father, the son. Ev- and I think that, like, in the culture as a whole, of the Catholic culture, um even the father in the house, like, he could be a complete bum, and the women are upholding the home, and he would still be the moral compass. He would still be commander. He is still the spiritual and moral advisor, the overseer of the lives of the women, the hen keeper. And you realize this when your house is, like, covered with images of male saints. Growing up in a house where it's like, Mexican Catholics, we revere the Guadalupe. But Guadalupe is not a symbol in the Irish Catholic. I don't know how they account for any mother. Because I know Mary doesn't get her just dues, but in Mexican culture, there's a component of the mother. The mother is it's a venerated symbol, and we have Guadalupe. Oh yeah. Um, and I grew up watching, like, a lot. I grew up surrounded by a lot of male symbolism when it came to the religion. A lot of Jesus symbolism, and and the popes, like especially or the popes definitely, and the saints, especially like Saint Jude, because we were always somebody was always losing something in the house, and the saints all have like their own job and mission. If you pray to the saints, that's another kooky commonality that Irish Catholics and Mexican Catholics have. We pray to the saints and the freaking Pope. "Ode to My Family" is like my personal favorite song, Kelly. And I want to talk about a little bit about that song a little later. Yeah, it's probably the one that's mm, really hits. Yes, dragon. So, yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like our these sisters, these rage feminists, like they get to this point, and I'm telling you that it's like it's the pain, it's the complex trauma of abuse. And it has so much to do with how that was dealt with in childhood. It's like when a child is not championed, that fucks you up for the rest of your life. If you know of an unchampioned child, please step in. Please do, because that I really think is what went on here with these sisters, given the culture, us, like I said, of silence. Um, yeah, the Pope. The Pope is a big one. I never really understood the Catholic obsession with the Pope, or like with the American Democratic royal families. Because that's another one. Like Catholics, Mexican Catholics are like obsessed with the Kennedys. Why? Why? they're, they're not. I mean, they're not. Now that we know more, but it's like a thing. It's like I don't know. And I think it's because the Kennedys were Catholic. Like, that's a very disturbing trend too. It's like the culture of Catholicism. Do you know what I mean? Do you know that can happen? Like the culture of something. Um, but yeah, like weird obsession with the Kennedys too. Never understood it. Linger, yes, was another great one. Mm. Me too, Dragon. I'm feeling it. Like I said, this is why I had to come on and do this. I wanted to talk with you guys about this because, I had been sitting in my feels and definitely listening to a lot of Cranberries and replaying some of those details. Um another similarity between, Irish and Mexican Catholics are like our crazy obsession with the superstition, or with superstitious shit, even though like that's literally frowned upon by our God. These Irish and Mexican Catholics, they will just take whatever the hell, just willy-nilly, whatever works, because I do see a lot of hypocrisy in especially the Mexican brand of Catholicism. Um, yeah, like there's a lot of things that are considered worldly, like in education, like reading books of philosophy. Even though I did scare the crap out of my mom once because I was reading the Satanic Bible. She walked in on me reading the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. You know what I'm talking about. So that was a very fun book, though. Satanists are pretty cool people. I mean, they're not they're not bad. They're not as bad as some other religions that I can name. But I did freak out my family a lot because they're just very conservative, very traditional, and very superstitious about certain things. And everything seems to be occult to them if it doesn't fall like under the very strict like Judeo-Christian, sort of like if it's not a rosary, it's the occult. If you have a little white candle, it's the occult. Um So yeah, like everything under the sun seems to like be falling under like or considered worldly, I think, by a lot of Catholics. Um, but not having babies, they really believe in big families, the Catholics, and I know Irish people do too. They come from big families. Uh, and like I said, they're obsessed with female chastity and etiquette, and so obviously like I couldn't hang around very long. I did do like I did a year and a half stint in a Catholic middle school and it was miserable. The nuns that were our teachers that taught us, and I don't think they were doing a really good job at it either. They were very miserly people, very much like the online radical feminist community, especially the Mexican ones. They used to hit us. They used to hit us, and our parents would give them permission to. Uh, and there was like this one nun that would like dig her nails into me, and I really hated that. But anyway, yeah, and the priests at the school were also, they were always blaming girls for being loose, and they were always, calling to attention issues of morality with women, with girls. And I don't know, those priests were mostly homosexual from what I can remember. Um, and extremely pervy. Which are pretty much like the only two male modes, am I right? Like homosexual or pervy. Uh, there was a lot of church in my life growing up, and catechism. So I was like always learning about the Bible and learning about the ways of men, basically, the the ideal modes of behavior for women. I was learning how to be a good Catholic girl. And there were odd Catholic home customs that, you know, I realized that each family creates around Catholicism, and many of it just or a lot of it makes just like absolutely no sense. Like parents, for instance, they do put a lot of trust in the clergy and priests and nuns too. And, both I've seen have been extremely abusive. As a matter of fact, Sinead O'Connor talks about the nuns at the Magdalene laundries that she was in as being very abusive to her, but they were also the women that, first inspired her. I think they gave her her first used guitar. But, it is a totally different experience when you go to Catholic school. They're always guilting you for something and scaring the hell out of you with devils and demons all the time. Um, yeah, so, like, I mean, I just think that parents really, because there's, like, religion and this, like, seeming, this idea that these are, like, seemingly good people, trustworthy people. Parents, they put a lot of trust in people that are involved with the church. And, despite the fact that, in the last 10 years, there have been a significant number of cases against the archdiocese here in the United States, and elsewhere. I think Argentina too. I mean, everywhere where Catholic religion is being practiced, they have allegations of abuse. Um, and they've had their own share of scandals. And these are sustaining truths about the Catholic Church. It's a rape culture. I really, looking back as a kid, I really hated the creepy, dark confessionals. Uh, these weirdos really wanted like a lot of details from, minors that were going in there. I definitely remember it being that way. Um, yeah, I I once outed a priest for some really bad conduct that one of my cousins had reported to me. And I talked about this priest to family members. And to this day, those family members don't talk to me. because when I was 13 years old, I told him that my little cousin told me that he was being inappropriately touched by this priest that everybody loved at our church. And this has been a very personal and very contentious topic for some members of my family that I did this. And that's one of those experiences that have made me particularly leery of Catholic religion and very scared of it for children, for children whose families are practicing it, because I understand this culture of silence that's happening in the home. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that parents are becoming more aware and they're being realistic about what happens with people at the helm in a Catholic congregation. Um, and similar things would happen to me throughout my life when I tried to call out abuse. People are so goddamn lazy and scared to ever do anything about it. And I think that they think like it's just a dumb kid. It's like a dummy little girl complaining about it, right? I've even heard them say, "It's this little dumb bitch." Like she doesn't matter. And I've been called that by adults. Um, yeah, an older teenage boy, also that I knew was, he was being instructed by a priest to molest girls from my church. And that too, it caused a tremendous impact for me. And one of the reasons why I left the Catholic Church and any kind of theology, any kind of religious, especially Judeo-Roman, Judeo or Christian Judeo-Christian religion, because there's a, like I said, an exaltation of the patriarchal father that will never center the interests of girls. It just can't. It's a mess, the Catholic cult. Uh, and there is a tradition. This is obvious. These are empirical facts. It happens so often that we can't ignore it. There's a tradition of pederasty and CSA that plagues and discredits the Catholics. It seems to be in the DNA of the religion because this mentality is passed down somehow in these congregations and even in the homes of the practitioners. The patronizing male culture, much like in Mormonism, Christianity, Islam. We can go on. Religion stifles women into silence on CSA in particular because women are simply lambs in this system. They're the victims. They're there for the slaughter of religious men. They run the biblical narrative, men. And so they get to shame women no matter what. If she endures it, if she reports it, because it's a sin to go against the father. That's what they'll say. I was told about sin so much. I was warned about sin. No girl, no woman should want to sin. It's against her body, her family, her culture. It's a big burden on women's shoulders, all of this responsibility to stave off sinning. And what is sinning? O'Riordan's song "Ode to My Family," as you mentioned, Kelly, it is like my favorite. Very, very sad song. And it was a big impact on me as a survivor. It still is. I've tried to sing that song in karaoke, but it's hard because it's so deep. It's probably one of those songs I can't sing because it's very sad. Um, so deep and it's so real, and so was Dolores, and so was Sinead. I think perhaps too real for this world, too real for us to have. The causes of death are unknown for Sinead O'Connor at this time, but we could, we could, and also I believe for O'Riordan, they're known. It's very tragic. She passed alone. I believe drowning while intoxicated in a tub. Why is it always a tub? Sad. Um, Both of these women were dealing with depression and mental health struggles and with tremendous losses. Both of these fierce women were forged in an Irish Catholic milieu. Both were victims of abuse and suffered from mental illness and the lingering effects of trauma throughout their lives. Both battled suicidal thoughts and died unexpectedly. And these women were relatively young. I read that Dolores was greatly inspired by Sinead. We mentioned this earlier, and I do want to talk about it a little bit because there was a connection. Um, I had read that she was greatly inspired by Sinead, and I'm sure that a lot of people I'm sure their countrymen and women always compared them because Irish is not a large country, right? And the fact that these women broke through the way that they did, um, transcended through so much adversity and CSA, complex trauma, is pretty inspiring. And I'm sure that a lot of people compared them. Um, and I read that Dolores O'Riordan's audition song when she was auditioning for, the band that was to be the Cranberries, she used a Sinead O'Connor song to do her audition. And there was believed to have been a feud between them, but it's not true. Um, there was caution at first, I think, between them, uh, because it's probably that female socialization. But I noticed that once Dolores began having her public breaks and mental distresses, because she went through a divorce and again, some adverse mental breaks. After she started going through that stuff publicly, she was, they started to brand her as crazy, as the public does. And so I think it was after that point that she and Sinead O'Connor connected and had a friendship to some extent. They definitely knew each other and were amicable, I read. So, pain and sexual anxiety experience in childhood can turn you into a misfit. And when you have talent, as these women had, um, and beauty and rage, enough to platform to a wider audience, and you speak about reality and what happened to you, what compels you and what made you the sufferer that they see, that they say they love. It's sad that, like, when you tell them, when you do open up and when you do tell people of your struggle and what you've been through, um, you'll still be demonized. And it's sad to know that in the lives of these women, there was a point that they were, simply for speaking. Um, Seems like the brunt to bear always for the victim, never the abuser. It is never their shame to carry. It's always hers. And as I said, that could not have been something that uh, these sisters sat with very easy. We should do better to address the needs of our friends, our beloved sisters, all of us, because most women have endured some kind of abuse from men, from patriarchy, from the systems of patriarchal oppression. People seldom cry for help. It's not how we work, is it? Our society makes us believe that asking for help is a weakness when it's not. But I think it's very hard to ask for help. Most people try to believe that they can help themselves. This is why, and I've talked about feminist grace, and this is why we must have it. We must have grace for women, for our sisters, for our sisterhood, because we don't know the bullshit that they've seen. But I'm sure that we would be very quick to understand it. I'm sure of it. These women are my sisters in rage. They were warriors. They told us stories that were not meant to be told. The saints and the sinners of Irish Catholic patriarchy tried to silence these two women, but it couldn't. They broke through. They transcended through that pain, and it did so much. They risked a lot to send out these messages, and we're going to hear them. We're going to continue to hear them. I'm so glad that I read that letter from Miley Cyrus because it was just so poignant and definitely feminist. And I think that we need to talk to women like that more. I'm about to wrap this up. It's been a lot of fun. I'm so glad I got to talk about these women, these amazing rockers and women of worthy of mention here in this rage feminist space. We will continue their legacy of bravery and of speaking out. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dragon and Kelly, for joining me tonight, and everyone else that was watching. Thank you. I'm not going to have a Turf Sunday service tomorrow, like I said, because I will be traveling this coming week. So I'm gonna save it for the following week, and I will also be back with that juicy episode that I've been sitting on. I've been warming it up. But like I said, I will be back the following week, and I'm so glad that I got to sit with you guys tonight. I'm about to get into something fun tonight, hopefully. All right, my sisters. I will see you next time.